Good morning. I hope you guys are doing really well today. All right, so to continue on with the gels that are included inside that awesome kit, I'm going to be showing you guys how to work with Clear Sculptor. I'm going to be showing you guys how to work with white sculpture, how to practice doing smile lines. I feel this is really important, especially when you guys are learning hard gel. Let's go ahead and get right to it. All right, so what we want to be able to do is prepare the nail. So I have some practice tips here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clip off the back end of the plastic and then just kind of file along the edge. And this is going to give me a nice cuticle area that's nice and tight. I have my tile. And then I want to go ahead and remove the shine from the surface of the nail. So if they have cuticles, you want to go ahead and push those cuticles back. And then what we want to be able to do is just gently remove shine around the perimeter of the nail and through. For those of you guys that just joined Habib and Tracy on Twitch, that was epic. Love the conversation. Love talking to you guys. It's just such an incredible platform where we can have some real down-to-earth human interaction. It's pretty awesome. All right, so once you're done doing that, let's go ahead and use swipe. I'm going to go ahead and clean the surface, and then I'll just kind of wipe off that residue. And what this is going to do is set me up for protein bond. So you have your swipe in your kit, you have your protein bond, and what we want to be able to do is do 2 coats. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on some fundamentals first. I want you to go ahead and practice doing an overlay before we get into actually doing a sculptured nail. What we want to be able to do, I'm going to go ahead and use base, is we have to establish a really good foundation, right? So I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush. If your brush is stiff, what you can do is you can take a little bit of swipe. Right, I have a little bit of residue from yesterday from color, but we can go ahead and clean off all that residue that's on the end of my brush. Right, just go ahead and make sure that everything is nice and clean. I think one of the hardest things to do when you're learning to work with gel is just kind of keeping everything from being super sticky. Right, and it's okay. I mean, in time, you'll definitely figure it out. All right, so we want to be able to pull. I want to be able to get a nice. You can see that nice little tail. I'm going to tap that tail off. And what we want to be able to do is I want to be able to set it down where there is a slight pillow on the back end, creating that tooth. And then what I could do is get inside and then just kind of push out so that it gets it to the perimeters. You know, that's the whole purpose. A little piece of glitter from yesterday. You can see in the back, I can use my tile to just kind of wipe my brush, but this is going to kind of create a really nice even structure so that you have basically not too patchy of work. I find that if you don't pick up enough, you're going to get little dots, right? Little air bubbles, right? So we're going to go ahead and set this inside the light. And then while this is setting, right? So while this hand is inside the light curing, you're working on this hand. As soon as you're done doing base on all 5 fingers, and my suggestion is to work from pinky to thumb. Don't go from thumb to pinky because you can see how obviously the thumb is off to the side. That's going to make all the difference in the world. It only has to be in for 30 seconds. So if it takes you 30 seconds, you know, boom. I personally like to cure it for a minute because it takes me about a minute to get it on the other hand. I'm not timing it. I just literally like to get it on and then work on the other hand. Okay, so what we're going to do is in your kit as well, you're going to get some concealer pink, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to structure your smile lines. And right, so for those of you guys who are experienced, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to get enough product, right, where you're going to start from one end and then work yourself down. So for all of you guys who are experienced, what I want to be able to do is, you can see how I'm just keeping contact with the surface as I'm literally just, like you can see, I'm going over the top. Like if I'm working towards this corner, I'm not going underneath, I'm going over the top so that I could get the tip of the brush as close to the edge as I possibly can, and then back over. And then you'll notice as I'm coming through, I'm keeping contact, right? Keeping contact all the way through. So as I work down the sides, and I'm working down the sides, as soon as I start getting closer to the middle, I'm going to start bringing it more towards the center so that I could bring my smile line down, right? Boom. You can see I'm just using the tip of the brush just to kind of working the smile line into place. And then this is how we're going to achieve building a smile line, right, with one bead. Okay, so you'll, again, the motion of working side to side, and I could care less if you have like I could pick this apart and say, okay, oh my gosh, there's that point is off right there, right? Or this looks a little bit shallower than that point. I mean, you could always just take the tip of your brush before you set it inside the lamp and kind of grab that edge. You can see I'm just grabbing the edge with the tip of the brush and just kind of working it up. It's not going to slide out of place immediately. It takes a little bit of time. You know, and even this section right here, if I take the tip of my brush and come down and just kind of guide it into place, you can see how I'm going to be able to build a really, really natural smile line on the natural overlay. Okay, so if you guys have that experience, fantastic. You could work it all the way down and then use the techniques we talked about yesterday about freezing before you go inside the light, so you don't create that really, really high intense thermal reaction. Okay, so I'm just going to gently wipe this off. That way the surface stays tacky. I don't want to take the tack off, so I'm not going to wipe it with I need that tack, right? Because if I wipe it with this, it's going to remove the dispersion layer. I don't want to remove the dispersion layer. For those of you guys that are beginning, what you can do is you can take your clear, watch this, I'm just going to get a small amount on one side of my brush. And then what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to set the brush backwards, right? So if I come down to this point, right where I think the center of my smile line is going to be, and I literally push and I keep the gel in front of my brush, I can slide this all the way to the corner. I can literally push down and then slide it all the way up to the corner. Dude, look at that. I'm going to create that wall. Oh yeah, check out that wall. Boom. Right, and then I could wipe my brush, and then if I need to do a little bit of detail work, I could always come from the front just to kind of loop that up. So once I establish that wall, so like no one's ever going to feel anything, right? You can go ahead and set it inside the light. We can go ahead and set it inside the light, and it's not going to take more than, I'd say, 20, 30 seconds for it to freeze in place. At the same time, you'll be working on the other hand, and then as soon as you're done doing two fingers, you're going to notice that like this is frozen. So now what I can do is I can take a much healthier bead of gel, right? And I can go ahead and do the same exact thing. I can go ahead and start it from the cuticle area, like so. For me to get it close to that corner, I'm going to kind of pillow. So pillowing is kind of a pushing down. So as I push down, I'm pillowing it. I'm working to the other side. You can see as I'm getting closer to the corner, what I want to be able to do is work from the top of the gel, right? And then I start slinging down, right, with the body of the brush, just keeping contact with the surface. You can see I'm just literally working down, keeping contact with the tip of the brush all the way down. Same thing on the other side. So I rotate across, and then as soon as I start getting closer towards the smile, my brush kind of lifts up, kind of leaves a little bit of thickness. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to work it to the very edge of that smile that I created, right? This is a great guide for all of you guys that are starting. I feel that you're going to be able to get way sharper smiles if you focus on building that fundamental foundation first. You can see that really does help all of you guys that are struggling with smile lines. And again, it will kind of self-level. If I have to kind of bring it down just to kind of guide it, I'll be able to do that as well, okay? All right, so once we kind of get that into place, then we can go ahead and set that. You have to make sure that when you're setting it inside the light, it's really important that once you're done building all 5 fingers, you have to go inside the light for at least a minimum of 60 seconds. You have to make sure that body is set. It's bonding to the base level, all right? So that's, again, setting it for that period of time is going to ensure. It's going to take you at least, I'd say you can see how long it took me. It takes me about 20 to 30 seconds to get it down below, set it, right? So if you're rotating hands while you're working, then it should take you probably another 10 to 15 minutes to build out the body. And then you can fill the remaining space with your choice of white or your choice of glitter. I'm going to cover that right now so you have an understanding. And if you choose to go through and tighten up your smile line, you can always use the end of your hand file just to kind of go around the edges. All right, so let's get to that, right? So what I'm going to do, right, if I find that I'm not going to wipe anything, right, because it's still tacky. But if I decided that I wanted to kind of get in here and just tighten up my edges, I'm not worried about that dust. Really, I'm not. All right, so that is because it's not going to show up. Like it really is not going to show up when I put my white in. It's just kind of prepping that edge, making it tacky. If you choose to use, you could also get a clean manicure brush, right? So that if you choose to kind of dust away, right, you just have to remember that it's going to leave a little bit of dispersion inside there, but you're going to have a clean edge while you kind of file this in. It's a great way for you to establish a really, really sharp smile line. Once we actually have that set, then what I'm going to do is use white sculpture. Everything is not focusing on tube gels right now, really focusing on how to use all of the products that come inside your kit. So when you pick up your white, what I want to be able to do is get a nice even amount on one side of the brush, and then what I'll do is I'll set it to the front, right? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce that, take that tail all the way to the corner. And then as soon as I'm done doing that, I'm going to bounce. I'm literally bouncing as I'm taking that tail all the way to the edge. And then I have enough product, right, here where if I get contact and then lightly start to feather this down, what I'm going to be able to do is literally get a very even application from the smile line all the way down. And all I'm trying to do is build something even so that when I file my pink, it files absolutely perfect. You can see that it's going to be probably a little bit lower. Let me just make sure I get my edges. Right, when you guys are practicing on plastic, don't get frustrated if you build the white too thick and it pops off. I mean, it's happened to me occasionally because we're working with something that's opaque. So if you're working over an opaque tip like these tips that we have here, sometimes the light's not going to penetrate all the way through. So if anything, maybe double cure it, file it light, and then when you seal it. But this is going to give you the best, I would say, results when it actually comes to your smile lines. Learning how to build the wall, learning how to, it's just like I show you guys with acrylic. When it actually comes to sculpting, then what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to use the clear sculpture. I'm gonna break some of that out right now. I'm gonna wait till this dries and I'll show you guys how you're going to sculpt a nail by using that. And that helps if you're using any kind of opaque color over the surface. So again, what I want to be able to do is just clip this off, boom, and then I'm set with really even kind of cuticle area all the way around. That is set. I made sure I cured that all the way through, full 60 seconds. Right, and just go ahead and wipe that off, right? Just pushing through to make sure that I don't have any soft spots. I definitely don't. You're going to notice when, right? So let's say we are sculpting, right? And we want to build opacity on the end of the nail. You can't just build white all the way out. What you have to do is you have to build using a clear gel, and then basically once you use the clear gel, you're going to be able to get a cure from the top to bottom. That's how you're going to ensure that your free edges cure all the way through. Okay, let me just go ahead and clear that out. And then what I'm going to end up doing is taking protein bond, coming all the way through. I miss doing trade shows, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like at the trade shows I was really able to demonstrate. For those of you guys that remember the trade shows before COVID hit, I'd spend all day long doing demonstrations. That was fun. One day we will be back to that. All right, so what I'm going to do is take a little bit of base, and I'm just going to apply a nice even coat from cuticle to free edge, just kind of splitting it through, making sure that I have nice even cuticles, nice side walls, and even kind of build up all the way. I could use it, kind of slide the product all the way out. I'm going to go ahead and go inside the light. Make sure that you're setting it inside the light, and then you're working on the other hand. So start from pinky, go to thumb. So once this is inside, you're working on this hand. I'm only going to keep it in for about 30 seconds. Okay, now we're going to be working with clear sculpture. So, right, so you see this, and you're going to look at the thickness, and you're just going to be like, oh man, damn, son, it's quite thick. How am I going to end up working with something like that? It's the same with any viscosity that has zero movement. You have to know how to use your brush to get it from one point to the other. I'm going to show you guys that right now while the base is curing. All right, so once we actually have the base set, what I'm going to do is take a nail form. And I want to get this, right, we want to get this as flush to the natural nail as we possibly can. Boom. And then once we get this flush to the natural nail, then I'm going to use, just put a little bit of oil on my finger here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is use some of this clear. I'm going to go ahead and scoop this out. Boom. So you can see I have a nice healthy amount on one side of the brush. And then what I want to be able to do is I want to attach it to the free edge. So once I actually get it to the edge, I want to be able to work it right all the way to the corner using, see how the brush is sliding to the corner? I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side. I'm going to get it all the way to the corner. I'm taking the tail of the gel. I'm making sure that I'm getting it to that end. So once I get it from side to side, then what I'll usually do is come back with a little bit more product, reattach it to the free edge, and then really just start focusing my attention on just kind of lightly floating, right? Floating this all the way out to, say, an extension that I want to be able to build. Constantly working on the sides, bringing it up, making sure that I have my sides absolutely flush to the free edge. And then once I have that done, I need to go inside the light, and we need to freeze it for a minimum of 30 seconds. Sorry, no one wants to see my arm hair. All right, so inside the light, we need to make sure, again, we freeze that for a minimum of 30. You can see that I'm just wiping the excess off. I'm not physically cleaning it yet. I'm not going to wait till the end just to get the excess off the end of my brush. Okay, you're going to notice that if I was to take my fingers and slightly kind of pinch from the front of the form and just be very, very gentle, right? Then what I'm able to do is I'm able to build out that, right? I'm able to build out a clear tip where I'm going to be able to, and you can see how flush, right? It's completely flush to the natural nail. It's just like when you're doing acrylic, you want to be able to build something. And with Clear Sculptor, you're going to be able to do multiple fingers at a time. So, depending on what you're going to create, if you were doing, you would do your smile lines exactly the same way. You would go out and build it, then you would do your white onto this point, and it's ready to rock and roll. If you were going to do, if you were going to create custom mixes, like I'll show you some cool stuff, but I mean, we can just you can even take a little bit of concealer pink. I don't need that much. All right. And if we were going to mix in, one of my Funkadelic is pretty sick. There we go. Crystal glitter mix. Probably the finest of all our glitters. Trying to create a really nice, subtle pink that has just a hair of sparkle inside. Love that look. All right, so even when you're working with something that has this level of opacity, right? If I was building over the surface, like if I was going to take this pink and then let's say that we wanted to build over this tip. Look at this. Like you can see how it's kind of a pasty type of consistency, but you can see how I'm just literally, I have it on the surface of my brush as I'm working it down from the sides, really from the sides. I'm not really touching the surface. I'm bringing this all the way to the point to create the level of thickness that I need. And then if I decided that I just kind of wanted to kind of fade this out into the body, I totally could. Or I can continue to work all the way, but I'm just going to kind of fade it in and I can finish it off after I'm done. But one thing you'll notice that when a nail like this, right, goes in, you can see from the side profile, it's not really built up that much. If I'm going inside the light, then I'm getting it to cure not only from the top, but the reflection of the light is actually curing it from the bottom as well. This is really important if you're building any type of opaque gels onto the tip. If you're doing designs with gel polish as well, if you wanted the gel polish to cure extremely well, especially if you're doing types of marbleizing through the free edge, then what you want to be able to do is use that Clear Sculptor. That comes inside the kit as well, right? So you're fully equipped with all that stuff. And you can tell with just that exposure, right? You can tell with just that exposure that, I mean, that's rock hard, right? That's solid. You know, that's how you're going to be able to get your free edges completely set. But this to me is just a really pretty nail. I'm going to finish this off. I'm going to use the same color. I'm literally going to work around the edge, and then again, you can see I'm using just the very, very tip of my brush to keep contact with the surface as I'm working it all the way down the sides. I'm really the sides and then the fronts, right? I'm not touching this top area right here, right? I'm not going back over here, literally coming down the sides and then working it across. Down the sides, working it across until it kind of joins all the way out to this point. Then I can just kind of brush it through, right? Just try to get it as even as I possibly can. If I need a little bit more, I could always go back and grab what I need, and I'm just going to attach it to the surface and then use a floating really a floating, you can see even here from the sides, I'm using the edge of my brush, that real fine edge of my brush to just kind of guide the product into place. So that's going to be, it's going to be really sick when it's finished, filed, and done. So this needs to go inside the light again. And we're going to cure that for another, right? You need to do that for a full minute, and then we can file them into shape, and I'm going to show you guys exactly what they look like. I'm going to see some of these questions, right? Been doing a much thinner layer of beige. Should I be doing thicker like yours? Yes, definitely. If it's thin and there's no dots, then you're good, right? So for me, doing a thicker layer just ensures that I'm just going to have really a solid buildup around the perimeter of the nail that's going to set a really awesome anchor for whatever you put on the surface. Can you please save this live? It'll be saved. Can I get the price for that hand? I love it. You can just jump online, check it out, www.youngnails.com. What's that glitter, please? Crystal glitter mix. If I do gel overlay and it doesn't really need filing, can you go straight to gel polish? You sure can. I mean, if you look at it and it looks perfect, why mess with it, all right? If it's not broken, don't fix it. What gel is that? I'm using a combination between the gels that come inside the Pro Gel Kit. I used concealer pink and I mixed crystal glitter mix, and I used white sculpture to create the white. This is off topic. Will your nail dust collector be back in stock? I don't know. You'd have to talk to customer service about that. All right, so going back to the nail, let me just go ahead and put this aside. And then what I'm going to do is, remember, you're going to use your swipe, right? So if you have your swipe is also going to be used to wipe the dispersion layer off of the nail. So I'm just going to kind of clean up around, make sure this is all set, ready to rock and roll. Now, because I am working with gel, then I'm going to be using the dust collector, and go ahead and set that up. Where is it? So it's way over here. Let me just grab that real fast. Okay. It's nice to have something like this, because what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to ensure that none of the gel filings are going to get all over the place. So I'm just going to place that on top. Let me just go ahead and make sure this is plugged in. All right, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm just going to kind of file my edges. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Wow. Okay. I'm going to file my edges just to make sure that my side walls are nice and clean. But one of the things you're going to notice, and I really want you to be able to see, that when I file, so I'll go ahead and take my safety bit. I don't want to file too hard, but I want to be able to show you that if I'm filing away the smile line, so if I'm coming through the body and I'm working through the upper arch, so you're going to notice as soon as I start to file right through my smile, look at how sharp that ends up becoming. Just very gentle. I don't need to be super aggressive because I'm doing an overlay, right? So that you can see that, like, if I'm coming through and I'm like, okay, I got to make sure that I don't over file this because I don't want to file into my white. But dude, I mean, that is like, that's blazing sharp. It's crazy, right? And so looking at the side profile, I want to make sure that I take my upper arch down. To me, that has great, you can see that from the side, how I want to be able to create that. I don't need to over file the white. The white's pretty much filed into shape. All I'm doing is just lightly touching the surface, and that way I'm going to be able to seal it, right? And then usually at this point right here too, if you were to take a hand file around the edge, so I'm just being very, very gentle, I'm just using a light motion through the surface, right? And then just touching everything up. Let me go ahead and get some wipes so that you guys can see, but That's how you're going to get some smoke and smiles, by actually just doing an overlay. So if your customers have really great natural nails, or you build your free edge, you're going to be able to get your smiles like that. I mean, that looks better than acrylic. It's crazy. So this here, I want to be able to kind of take down my edges, and gel is really soft, so I have to be careful that I don't over file everything out of place. But all I'm trying to do is shape. You can see I'm kind of shaping towards the center, and I'm really building those ledges. And then my lower arch is the same thing. It's going to be the same principle. If my lower arch is lower, then I want to try to keep it at that lowest point parallel to the finger, and I want to be able to file up, right? So that I'm going to be, you can see parallel to the finger filing up. Another great way of looking at it is from the side. So if I start from the lowest point and then I file up, then what I'm going to be able to do is I'll be able to reach that corner. I'm putting a lot of pressure towards this point right here, so that my lower arch is going to be able to build straight. I'm missing just a hair of gel at that corner, but that's okay. My top coat will fill it. Okay, so once I actually have this built out and I have my sides, you can see there's quite a bit of volume at the tip, but I don't want to over file it, right? So if I'm looking at the side profile, then I'm going to go ahead and fire this up to about 12,000 RPMs. I need to really focus my attention on here. I don't want to over file this again, so I'm just tapering that back end. Don't need to over file, and then I just kind of taper that front end. And you can already see the arch coming into play, right? I don't need to over file that top. I just need to take this down right there. Boom. Okay, so that to me is going to be great shape for the upper arch. And then when I'm looking down the barrel of the nail, I'm going to be filing from here just to make sure that everything is even from side to side. You can see how it rounds off. I'm going to round this edge off right here. Still got a little bit of detailing to do. I'm not completely done. And then if I'm going around the cuticle area, I have to be very careful that I don't over file the back. And then I'm finished kind of removing bulk. That's probably the biggest, I would say, that's probably one of the hardest things to do when you're working with gel, because it's such a soft product, is like, how much do I file? You'll as you practice more, you'll start to realize that I don't need to over file. I just need to kind of reduce bulk. And you can even see the edge of my file. I'm not holding it flat. I'm just kind of holding it along that edge so that I can kind of taper my edges down, right? Taper my edges down so they look flush instead of, let me just try to get this as, there we go. So that's the whole thing, is trying to taper my edges down so that I don't take away a lot of the support. But what I'm trying to file out here is a really, really nice almond-shaped nail. Okay, kind of done with that. And then you're going to notice as I bring this through, right, so the last but not least amount of detailing is going to be along that edge. Yeah, so for those of you guys that came in late, right, so or followed me since yesterday, what I'm doing is I'm just working with components that come inside that awesome Pro Gel Kit. And you can see how well shaped all my edges are along the side. This is a great foundation nail, and then when I wipe this off, right, I'm going to have some really, really pretty, maybe just slightly overfiled around the edges, but honestly, you're not going to get that look when you're doing it on a natural nail. The peaching of the plastic is quite intense with a lot of this. Let me see if I can find. Don't have my buffer, which is all good. Let me just go ahead and clean this off. And then what you want to be able to do, just remember, is to put a little bit of protein bond just along the kind of the edges of the nail. Let me just go ahead and get some ultimate finish. So if there is any imperfections, this is going to really smooth it out. But like, I love the way the concealer pink with the crystal glitter mix is sick. It's like, it's just a baby pink that has that really nice subtle look. Love that. And then this one, again, is just the natural overlay. Remember, we're just kind of practicing our smile lines. And so you can see how you're able to get that level of perfection with your smile as well. Okay? All right. Cool. Long class today. Had to cover a lot of stuff. Wanted to make sure that you totally understood what was inside the kit. Wanted to go through it all. Smile lines, sculpting, components. I'll make sure to say this so that you can rewatch it. If you guys have any questions, make sure to hit me up. I'm always available to help you guys. I really, really appreciate your time. I appreciate your passion. I love you guys much, and have a good one. Peace.